Hey guys, I'm David Mitchell, founder and CEO of TRADEway. What if God himself gave you a blueprint for how to handle your money? Well, the Bible is a practical book. Let's dive in and see what it has to say about wealth, about risk, about leverage, and about investing, and uncover how trading in the stock market can be a powerful tool for moving towards your biggest goals. We're so happy you're here. This is The Word on Investing. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to our new podcast. We're real excited about it. And if you remember last time, we talked a little bit about some of the financial fables that Wall Street tries to put on us and get us to believe in and think about. And predominantly, the reason they do that is they've figured out a way to trade with zero risk. They trade with your money and mine. And see, that's what they want to do. So they don't want us to think we can do what they do. So they've created these fables. And the first fable was you must buy and hold. We talked about that a little bit last time. And really, we kind of covered some topics like what's the difference between investing, which is longer term, and trading, which is shorter term, and how Wall Street doesn't even want you to know about the trading part, but they do it all the time. So if you're interested in that, go back and take a listen to that episode. I think you'll really like it. But today we're going to talk about the second financial fable. And the second financial fable is it's impossible to know opportune times to buy or sell a stock. That's the fable. They want us to believe that it's absolutely impossible to know opportune times to buy or sell a stock. Now, to discuss this, I want to take a look at a quote from a man that's sort of my guru, my mentor in the stock market other than my own grandfather. But this man's name was William ONeill. And he's the founder and editor of the Investment Business Daily Journal. It's kind of like the Wall Street Journal, but it's more for trading rather than long-term investing. And I love it. I read it way more than I read the Wall Street Journal. But he said this man who owns this journal and who also holds a seat on the New York Stock Exchange says this, quote, "The idea that one cannot time the market is a myth," unquote. So when William ONeill says that the idea that you cannot time the market is a myth, he's not saying that we can tell the future. What he's saying is that it is possible to learn the skill sets to know and recognize opportune times to buy or sell a stock. Now, in order for us to believe this statement could even be true, we need to know who the man is that said it. Well, who is this man, William ONeill? Well, when he was a young man, he started out with just a few $1,000s in his pocket that he had earned in a salary. And he went to Wall Street and he built that few $1,000s into enough money to buy a seat on the New York Stock Exchange through trading stocks with that small amount of money. Now, he was still in his 20s when this happened. By the time he was 30 years old, and really this only took a couple of years to transpire, he had turned this money into enough money to buy a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, that back in those days, it would take a couple of $100,000 probably. So how did he do it? He did it by trading only in 2 or 3 stocks that he understood well. He did not over-diversify, but he traded in 2 or 3 stocks that he understood well. And he was trading, in other words, doing shorter-term trades, getting in and out at opportune buy and sell points in order to leverage or magnify the effect and leverage his money, and that's how he did it. So you take a man like this who, at a young age, was able to turn a few $1,000s into hundreds of thousands of dollars and then own a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, and now he owns a journal that's out there competing with the Wall Street Journal and has for many, many years. You got to think the man knows a little bit about what he's talking about. And this man said this, the idea that one cannot time the market is a myth. And what does he really mean, though? He's really just talking about learning to recognize opportune times to buy or sell a stock. And it's really all about skill sets. So when you learn these skill sets, you have the tools that you need to recognize these good buy and sell points. I mean, it's something he learned to do. He's written many good books, by the way, if you ever want to pick one of his books up on stock trading. And I've read them all. They're fantastic. But he shows you some of his skill sets. My grandfather developed these skill sets in our own family, and I learned those as a boy, and I've taught those to my kids and to their kids, my grandchildren. And they're just skill sets, which means you can learn them too. That's the exciting part. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, to trade stocks. Wall Street wants you to think that, but it's certainly not. That's another fable. Okay. So it's just skill sets. So you're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but you need to realize that's how it works. You're not supposed to. And think about this. Every business has expenses, right? You can't just make profit. You can't just make revenue. You have to have expenses. Every business has it. Well, in the stock trading business, you don't have a lot of expenses. So the main expense you have is when the play doesn't go the way that you thought it would. So let's say you thought the stock that you're looking at was going to go up, so you bought shares of stock, and then it actually went down. Well, there's a thing called a stop out that we teach you how to use, and you would stop that out with an acceptably small loss, and that's going to be one of the expenses that you have this month. So really your only significant expenses are going to be when the stock doesn't go the way you thought it would. But those are acceptable expenses when you know how to manage the risk and how to manage the money. And that's what we teach at TRADEway. So go out to TRADEway.com and check out what we have there. But we teach you these very skill sets in our step 1, start your journey. And also we have a great thing called the 30-day challenge. You could become part of that and you begin to learn these skill sets and you get coaching help and all sorts of things. And you can do either of those from home online. So we've got great support systems here and you need to take advantage of that. Now, part of the skill set is to learn that you're not going to get it right every time. No one does. The big boys on Wall Street don't get it right every time, but they play the probability math, and that's what works, and that's what we're going to teach you to do. So when it doesn't go the right way, you stop it out, say at maybe an 8% loss, and when it goes the right way, you let it run to say 30% or more and do the math on that. If when you win, you have the potential to make 30% or more, and when you lose, you might lose, say, 8% to 10%, then you don't have to get it right every time to have a great potential to make money. So that's how the math works, just in a nutshell. Now, as you get better and better at recognizing these good buy and sell points, you then have the potential to make really great trading decisions. And that's what it's all about. So you can certainly learn the skill sets to recognize when it's a good time to buy or sell a stock, or even when to stay out of the market, which is something our company teaches. You won't hear that on Wall Street. They want you to leave your money with them all the time. But we have times when we think you shouldn't be in the market. We call that a squirrel market. And we invented that. So don't try to Google it, by the way. But a squirrel market is just when you can't tell what the market's doing and you cannot recognize good buy and sell points easily. So you just stay in cash. And that's maybe as important to know as when to be in the market, I think, maybe more important. So not only is it possible to recognize opportune buy and sell points, it's done every day. Let's think about this for a minute. It's like we said, it's just a skill set. The more you practice it, the better you get at recognizing these opportunities when they present themselves. But look at these big boys on Wall Street. Look at your mutual fund company that your financial advisor put your money into. Well, how could they even earn a small return for your investment if they weren't trading in the stock market and knowing opportune times to get in and get out of the market? They have to know those skill sets. Now, are they perfect? No, but they use probability math, and it works when you get the math on your side. Now, think about this too. The mutual fund firm that your guy or gal put your money into, those guys get paid millions of dollars in bonuses every January. The traders that work for those mutual fund companies, millions of dollars, multiply millions of dollars every January in bonuses. Now, how could the companies pay them those bonuses if they're not making good trades during the year? So obviously they are, and they simply have the skill sets. So the fact is, with the right tools and the proper analysis and the skill sets, you can find opportune times to get in and out of the market. People do it every day. All right, so now that we've proven this is a myth, that you cannot know opportune times to buy and sell a stock, how do we learn to actually find these opportune times? Well, we've got tools, okay? Now, obviously we talk about this in great detail in Step 1, Start Your Journey. all over TRADEway.com website. There's just it's a learning process, and we want you to take it step by step. And just remember this, folks: people that come to us, 98% of them know absolutely nothing about the stock market, and most of them never owned a business. So we start at ground zero. Not only do we make it straightforward for our students to learn this, but it's also a lot of fun. And it can even be a family thing. Your whole family, if you have children, say 10, 12 years old or older, they will enjoy it too. So think about that. But this is really great. And what we're really going to be moving towards, folks, as we move forward with our podcast is starting to think about the idea of the family business. I mean, America used to have it right. We would teach our kids and grandkids skill sets that someone in our family had done. And so each generation we get better. And then the kids have a competitive edge on the marketplace as they go into the marketplace. And that works to have the potential to build wealth over the generations in a family, or a family legacy, we might call it. Now, we've kind of moved away from that. And today we just send the kids off to college to learn to do something no one in the family ever did. And I promise that does not lead to generational wealth. And even the Bible talks about it. Family business is what the Bible talks about. Think about Abraham. Think about people like that in the Bible. And it is a model. So our family has followed it, and I love it. I was a fourth generation family businessman, and now my kids are fifth generation, and now their children are learning the same skill sets that my great-grandfather and grandfather and dad taught me. So we want to get this idea out to you guys. You can use stock trading as a business. You can even get your kids in there as they get to be older teenagers and certainly young adults, bring them in and have a stock trading business and pass that down to each generation in your family. And that's what we want you to be thinking about. But you got to start with the knowledge and the skill set. So what are some tools we actually teach you to use to get better buy and sell points? One is charting. I mean, you can get software. Telechart is a great example of one. But you learn how to chart the price action of the stock itself and the volume bars, which shows you how much the big boys are buying or selling on any given day. And we teach you how to interpret that information to actually know when the big boys are getting into some stock and when they're getting out of that stock. Now, wouldn't that information help you? For example, let me pose this question. What if we could teach you how to get into a stock right after the big boys put millions of dollars into that particular stock? And we could also teach you how to get out of that stock and sell it for a potential profit before the big boys dump it. Now, wouldn't that be a skill set? Well, that's exactly what we teach at TRADEway. So you can use charting. You can use things called support and resistance lines, which we teach you how to draw those just like the big boys draw them. And it's what they're looking at. So you're looking at the stock in the same way they're looking at it. And then there are indicators. Those are things like stochastics and like moving averages, and there are many of them. And we have courses on that. You can learn that a little at a time. And I mean, it's comforting to know you really only need to be really good at about two of them. And we're going to dedicate some future episodes to how to use these things anyway. So it's not that hard. But these indicators help give you an idea of where that stock may be about to go based on what it's done in the past. And they make patterns. So we discuss patterns. I mean, you can buy books that are 4 inches thick on stock patterns. And, people in your family will say, oh, that stuff's like voodoo. It's not real. It doesn't really work. If it did, everybody would do it, that sort of junk. But, think about this. Charles Dow, how many of you have heard of that name? I mean, most people have heard of the Dow Jones Industrials, right? It's named after this man. Well, this man, Charles Dow, is who brought these types of things to this country. He brought a thing called candlesticks, which is a way that the Japanese were charting stocks back in the early 1900s. He brought that here and made it popular. Now, he knows a little bit about stock trading, don't you think? So when people start to just say things in ignorance because they just don't know, and they throw the negative vibes out there, we want to give you enough ammunition where you can handle yourself and just say, well, you ever heard of Charles Dow? Oh, yeah. Well, he's the one that actually brought technical analysis into this country. So the big boys use it, so you can learn to use it. And that's how you tell people about it. But the whole idea of charting and support and resistance lines, indicators, that's called technical analysis. And we're going to do an episode really soon, probably the next couple of episodes in the future. We're going to talk about the three-legged table, and that's going to include technical analysis and some other things. We'll get to that. But that's what this whole ballpark is. Technical analysis is what helps us recognize good buy and sell points. The pattern part is really fun, especially if you get your kids in the room and go to an online event with us. They can recognize those patterns better than you and I can sometimes. So it's a lot of fun in there. And what I teach pattern. I mean, like I said, they're books 4 inches thick on patterns. But I've gone through in my lifetime and picked the ones that actually work today. Some of them don't work anymore because of market changes and the size of volume now, the huge volume of people that trade now. But the ones that work are really important, and we can save you a lot of time. You don't have to buy the 4-inch book. You can just take a look at our lessons on patterns and grab hold of the knowledge and skill sets on those very quickly. So another thing I wanted to mention, and we'll probably be pretty well done for this episode, is I want to talk about this because in America, we're not teaching this anymore in any of our schools, even in the business schools, too much. And that is, we really need to learn to embrace the proper kind of risk. The Bible teaches very clearly that God loves educated risk. If you don't believe it, go back and take a look at that old parable that you were taught in Sunday school, the parable of the talents. And the two people in that story who took risk and had a return on the Lord's money, they were rewarded handsomely. And the one person who was fearful and didn't have the skill sets, didn't know how money worked, didn't know how to invest, he was rebuked, punished, and the little that he had was taken away from him. So think about that. That shows us God's mind on this. He loves risk. He loves for us to take educated risk. And yet our school systems are teaching us just to be secure. Go out, get an education, get a job, get old, retire, take one trip, and then die. I mean, that's pretty much the American plan, right? And the whole thing's built around security. Get a job, have security. Work for the government, that's even better. Have security. And yet the Bible teaches the opposite. That really sets us up for poverty because God put this thing in the universe, laws, kind of like the law of gravity, but it's called the law of risk-return trade-off. And that is that the amount of wealth that I potentially make for myself and my family is directly proportional to the amount of risk I'm willing to take. Now, we're not taught that, but that's what the universe has in it because God put that there. So to take no risk is to create zero wealth, right? I mean, God put that in the universe. So what does educated risk even mean? Well, think about it. In any business out there, you have expenses, you have things that you have to take care of that use up the money, right? You have to make investments that use up the money, but then you make money also. So every business is like that. Now, in stock trading, you don't have a lot of expenses. Like I said earlier, you really don't. Even the commissions are so small nowadays that the brokerage house charges you when they make the trades, that your main expense is when the trade doesn't go the way you thought it would. And we need to learn to think of that as an expense, not as having lost money, because then you think of yourself as a loser. It's really, you're not a loser if you stop out the trade that wasn't going the right way quickly and properly and manage that risk. You're actually doing the trade properly. So it's a good trade. Even if it loses money, it's a good trade because you did the plan. And that's how you need to learn to think about it. And you will learn to think that way. So here's what I'm saying. You've got to learn to embrace risk because it's not natural for Americans anymore to do that. We've been taught security is good, whereas God teaches risk is good. See, it's different. So, for example, if you lose money on a trade because it went the wrong way, and by that I mean it went down when you thought it was going to go up or whatever, you can't think of that as a bad thing. You just manage the loss and you make it be small compared to the wins that you make when it goes the right way. So you learn these skill sets and you learn to embrace risk. And here, let me just put it in layman's terms, okay? You've got to be able to be willing to lose some money or you will never make any money. That God just put that in the universe. Check out the parable of the talents. You'll see I'm right about that. That's God's mind on it. And the difference between educated risk and dumb risk or gambling is that you've taken the time to learn the skill sets in the business you're doing. So in stock trading, you've taken the time to learn how to recognize these opportune buy and sell points using some of the tools we've just mentioned, and you practice and you get good at it. And so when you get to that point, that pleases the Lord, and He will bless the risk that you take. Does that mean you win every time? Absolutely not. Do you have to? No. If you do this the right way and you get the probability math on your side, and you stop out the ones that aren't working right when you're supposed to, like we teach, and you stay with the ones that are working right, if you get, say, 6 out of 10 trades right, you have the potential to make money right there. So never think you got to get them all right, because you never will. The greatest traders in the world don't. They just know how to manage the risk and use the probability math. And that's what we're going to share with you, is all this wonderful world of knowledge that's out there. I like to think of it the way my old friend, Brother Otis Fisher, an older gentleman in our church, used to say, is that God has put everything on the shelf for his children. And this information, this Wall Street information, God put that out there on the shelf for you. And he had you in mind when he put it there. And all of these skill sets that we're going to share with you, that I've learned down through my family and through my own education and so forth, God's going to put that on the shelf for you, and he intended it for you. So one last thing on educated risk. When you've taken your time to learn something and you've done your homework, that's when you have the potential for great success. We wish you the best with this stuff. We think it's just a great way to plan for a future family legacy. Now, to really get good at these skill sets as fast as you can, the best way to do that is to register for our Step 1 Start Your Journey. And it's a 2-day event on Friday and Saturday, totally from the comfort of your home. You can register at TRADEway.com. And I'm tell you what, it will be so exciting. It's going to take you to a place that you never knew existed, a place where you can learn to leverage your money like Wall Street does, like your senator, your congressman does, like wealthy individuals do. You can get to a place where every dollar has the power of $7 to $14. Imagine that. We teach all these skill sets at TRADEway. And so we are excited to get to know you and to work with you. And thanks for joining us today. And I really want to encourage you to take the steps to go out to TRADEway.com, sign up for Step 1 Start Your Journey, or get started with a 30-day challenge. And if you love this today, then go ahead and rate and review it so that other like-minded people can find us. And next time, we're going to be talking about the third financial fable that we've been taught incorrectly all our lives. So be sure and catch that one. Now, we'll see you next time.